all the Arts Council team are going to be able to speak now and can answer the questions as they go through.
Okay, I see the first one up there, if I'm in the right place, and I hope everybody's with me here in the team on state aid. Mm-hmm. And Stu, I hope I've maybe answered that. We really don't think there will be any applications under this that will count as state aid. And all I can say again is, if you're in doubt, take it and we will assess it. But there are so many exclusions under the EU regulations that we really don't expect that it will apply through any applications that we're expecting. But we have to ask the question, and it is a new requirement. Is that okay?
I think Stu's come back to say that he's content with that. So just, this is Paul here, just to maybe give your voice a break, Noreen.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Paul. Why don't you go on to Peter and a couple of
others? I suppose really what I would just say, Peter, about the slides, I guess the slides are really just for this webinar, but what they are the guidance notes that you'll find online. So really there's nothing new in these slides that you wouldn't be able to download from the website. So I hope that answers that. It's just really it is replicated in the guidance notes themselves.
Yeah, okay.
The anonymous question about the mandatory enclosures and the format that you require them. I guess really the answer to that is, please do read carefully what you need to submit as mandatory enclosure and submit it in the way we ask you to do. So we can't really have exceptions. We have a very tight turnaround to process through the eligibility stage and then onto the assessment stage in order to try and get the funding decisions out in a timely way. So we haven't got capacity in-house to be going back and forth. Noreen has mentioned that we have a very small window to maybe go back to if there's something that you've genuinely been unable or for some extenuating circumstance you haven't been able to submit. But we would ask you please to submit all the mandatory closures in the way that we ask you to do so.
Paul, I'm just looking back at Stu's other question there, the start date of the window that ends on the 31st of March. I think your question is about, can you go back to, yes, I mean, these costs, what you apply for can cover the full impact of your losses for the past year. So from March 2020, well, from the 1st of April 2020, because that's when our funding runs from. So I think that's what you're inquiring. So yes, people will only now begin to be getting very clearly into focus what exactly the extent of your losses have been, how big your deficit is, and anything else that you have lost as a result of COVID, and then all of those special measures that you might need to put in place for this year up to the 31st of March. So it's a year's window from March 20 to 31st of March 2021. And within that, you can apply for all of your losses and your impacts. Would somebody like to pick up the capital question there? Seeing as we've just come from a capital meeting. So within the programme, we do say, minimal, really minor capital associated maybe with project delivery. So we do have, we've had 2 other capital streams open, both closed now, and we've got a lot of applications in there. So under this programme, we're really only expecting minor capital.
Yeah,
we do say that if you have any kind of essential IT equipment that you need perhaps for home working and activities to help you in your organisation to put information online, that we can look at that too. But I think, yes, as Noreen said, we're putting out quite a bit of capital support through two programs currently.
And
Can I just interrupt there? Can I just say, guys, as you are answering the questions, can you just read out which question it is? Because not everybody can see all the questions at the minute. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next one is, who's the best person in the council to talk to about applications for more than 500k? Colleagues, it'll be any one of us, depending, I guess, on the specialism. But if it's more general, you can really come through to any one of us maybe here today would be the best initial points of contact.
Yes, no problem. So visual, for example, Suzanne Lyle here, I'll happily take, but we're spread across the disciplines. So you'll find the numbers on the website. If you need to get us, emails and phone numbers there.
Yeah. Sarah Jane wants to know about can deficits such as bounce back loans be applied for? Paul, can you offer any insight on that one?
I think that might be one where Sarah Jane, we could take this offline because I'm not 100%. We need to just take a look at that one.
Yeah, indeed. Anonymous attendee, if this is a 2 to 3 year renewal plan, can you spend all the budget? How can you spend all the budget before March? Paul, did that sound?
Well, I suppose, yes. I mean, we do see that, I suppose, where that's coming from. Obviously, as Noreen has already outlined, in terms of the grant, all the expenditure has to take place before the end of the financial year. So it has to be before the end of 31st of March 2021. So it would be a case of what you might be able to achieve before that date in terms of getting what you might have in your renewal plan. All renewal plans will be different, but what might be there that you would be able to expend before that date to set you up on the track with your renewal plan. But it can't be prepayment. It can't be in the form of prepayments. It can't continue on beyond the 31st of March deadline.
The renewal plan is about seeing that you're viable and have lots of good plans for going forward in that 2 to 3 year period. So it's not just an end 31st of March idea of looking at you as an organisation. It's that bigger picture element. So it's just saying that you have good plans that you will continue either to do what you do or do even more or do it differently. So it's just to ascertain that.
Yeah, and just a wee bit further on that, Kieran Scullion, the renewal plans are really about how you're going to achieve recovery and your plan over the next 2 to 3 years and what investment we can give you now to stabilise your organisation to try and achieve those plans in the future.
Yeah, I mean, to put it crudely, and excuse me, if somebody says, okay, like I've incurred all of these costs this year, but then I'm closing next year, well, really, we would have to look at that, because we want to see this programme as giving people a future, keeping you stable for now as we emerge out of the crisis. So really, it's not just it's not a fund to help organisations wind up. As I said, just put that rather crudely, but will the Arts Council be offering only the amount requested, or will it meet an applicant at a level it feels more appropriate after receiving and reviewing the application? There's a very straight answer to this. Any one of us, if you want to answer there.
Hello?
Go right ahead, Noreen.
Yeah, I'm good. How's yourself?
Oh.
You're all right, Pat.
I was just going to say, we can't offer you more than you apply for. Okay. So that's just not possible. You have to put in exactly what you're asking us for, with all of the, that broken down as we went through there. And we can't make you we can make you a lesser reward depending on the demand of the programme, but we can't offer you more than you've applied for. So really carefully costed plans based on need.
I wonder, is there an element to that question that means, if they apply for 30,000, might we give 20 instead? So yes, potentially we might give less. We'll assess what's in the application and can we meet your request? And does it seem appropriate having assessed it? So it could be less than you applied for.
Yeah.
I think that's
Definitely.
probably important to say, actually. You know, I think that's certainly on my reading of the question, you know, it will, and as you've touched on, Noreen, obviously this could be, you know, very high demand here. So it will be a case of us having to assess carefully and look at options.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We can't give you more than you've applied for, but we can give you less. And it'll depend very much on the demand on the programme.
We also have, this is Gilly answering that question, we also, when we're completing assessments, we would have a range of options anyway, which we present at the moderation meeting and subsequently to the grants committee. So there's a range of options that we can present in terms of trying to meet either all of your request, some of your request, or perhaps none of your request.
Yeah. Paddy, can you clarify what the other grant was that if we're applying for, we can't apply to this? It's not, yes, Paddy, it's specifically the Heritage Resilience Programme, which is really a twin programme to this, but it's for heritage organisations. So you can't apply to both of those. But the Community Fund is a separate stream. It's got a £2 million budget. It's open now. It's on a rolling basis, and go for it. That's where you could get project funding. And the sooner that you apply to that, the better, because it gives you a wee bit of a window of opportunity to do more programme-based work before the end of March. Paul Mason's in. To clarify in my mind here, as a venue, if we apply for funding to run a production that is suboptimal, and then we are told we're not allowed to open due to further restrictions, will the finding be extended or will it have to be returned? Okay, good questions, Paul. Let's take it in two chunks. Does somebody want to help out with that one?
Well, it's Damien Smith here. You can only address the issue that's right in front of you at the minute, Paul, you know, which is if you have an idea that there is a production that you can put together, then you would apply on the basis of that with the relevant costs as you would articulate them. The decision that would be made then by the Arts Council would be based on what you propose. None of us know where we'll be in terms of further restrictions or potential opening. And even those won't be uniform across all possible venues. Some venues might be able to be more flexible within further restrictions than others would be. So we would have to take the specific case under consideration at that time when that happens. But I would say, let's just anticipate that you would make an application of that kind and we would respond to it in that way. And then we would be able to have other, you know, discussions and negotiations if circumstances changed.
Second part of your question, Paul, and similarly, large-scale venues are unlikely to reopen to full scale in the immediate future. So are we saying that it is possible to get suboptimal programme funding for an event that may take place and then the venue not reopen until potentially next year? I think in a nutshell, the answer to that is no. You can't apply for something post 31st of March 2021. So that would have to come out of your normal programming and you know what you might apply to us for as a regularly funded organisation under your annual funding programme. Hope that helps there. Any more questions? Will we scroll?
Just maybe Paul here, I can just answer the government funders database question there, just to say, look, if you're not already on it, if you're not in receipt of public funds, you know, maybe it's a case of you'll be applying to this and including your mandatory material to us because it won't already be on the government funders database. and then if you're in receipt of an award, then you would then subsequently go on to that. But if you want to know more about it, if you just really go to the Department for Communities website and just type in Government Funders Database, you'll get the link to it and all the information about what it's about and what you do. So maybe DFC website.
Will you take the next one, please, Paul? Management accounts.
Do management accounts have to be sent in if you do have your most recent accounts? It's not totally clear. So what we ask for, we require a set of management accounts covering the intervening period up to March 2020. So if you've
Yes.
So, I mean, yes. I mean, if applicants are encouraged to submit the most recent set of management accounts where they're available. So.
Yep.
Okay. Except if we already have them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. If a company has previously applied for an Arts Council grant, even if they've been unsuccessful, will their details be on the database? If I'm interpreting that correctly, we don't publish unsuccessful applicants. Anybody else got a take on that question?
If the question is about what you should submit, you should assume that the Arts Council has nothing belonging to you. So if you're asked to submit management accounts or any other kind of governance data information, you should just submit everything that you're being asked to.
Yes, I think.
Don't assume that we have any information. That's even if you're an organisation that the Arts Council has funded in the past.
Yes, and I would sort of say, just in my reading of the question, it's not, you may have applied but maybe haven't received a grant. So I mean, you'll know whether you're on the database really if you've received and you've gone on it. So.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood that question. So thank you, colleagues. Are you eligible to apply if you're a self-financing service within University of Ulster? Paul?
Well, look, again, I suppose sometimes these get a bit specific, but what I would say is I think what we can do there is really just refer you back to what you have to supply us with. So you have to be able to tell us how you're constituted, what kind of what kind of setup you are, and tell us, you know, that if you're wanting to apply. I wouldn't know the specifics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no, good question. And again, if you're, you know, your primary purpose, look very carefully at that within, you know, the university. It may be possible. So do come back and talk to us about that specifically. Andrew, I work with a company based in Belfast but have a branch in Dublin. The branch is administered from Belfast and accounts for approximately 30% of our turnover. Do we include income and costs for Dublin in our application?
Maybe I'll take that one, Noreen. It's Kieran here. Part of the eligibility is, you know, organisations, you know, who can demonstrate that the majority of their work take place in Northern Ireland. So that might be something to consider. It would be handy if you can split the accounts between the activity in Northern Ireland and the activity in the Republic of Ireland. If you can't do that, just make sure that it's sort of clearly highlighted within any of the financial information that you do send in.
Okay, anything else on that one? No? Okay, I can't, yeah. Okay, we got a thank you there. You're welcome.
Welcome.
Anything else?
The website, I don't think it.
Well, it's not quite back up, but it is being worked on, and I have an update that we're hoping it will be back up very shortly. So apologies that it's not. There's been a glitch, but it is very much nearly there, as far as I know.
Okay. Paul, you mentioned equity in an expert panel involved in assessment process. This, of course, is welcome, but in terms of venues, what form of representation would be on the panel to look at this? I understand, of course, Screen and UU for creative industries. Paul, really, I think what the expert panel is very much about the wider footprint. than the Arts Council normally has been able to fund under its remit, given the nature of this programme. So we didn't actually see needing another expert voice really on the core art and, you know, venues that are primarily arts venues, which we're used to dealing with. So really it was more in terms of the creative industries and the equality and community benefit side of things, rather than bringing in another body on the arts and on our core cultural venues, which we hope we're experienced enough to deal with. Okay, can we scroll on? Decision date is January 21. Does that mean you can only pay fees for February and March 21? Paul, maybe?
Well, yes. I mean, I'll just go back to what I said before. You know, that it is that if that's part of your application, then it would have to be just it would only be for that part of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say on the foot of that, maybe didn't bring this out enough in the presentation. The orientation of the programme is very much as you will have seen, stability and clearing deficits and helping to keep organisations viable to go forward. There is an element of programming in there, but you're absolutely right. Given that the decision dates are only January, you really need to think carefully and realistically about, can you do any programming? The one thing I would highlight is the possibility of commissioning work. It's listed on the eligible costs, and that's something that you may want to look at. You could do some of your commissioning under this programme for work to be presented and delivered later. But as long as you have commissioned the artist and paid the commissioning fee, or artists, while they are working and devising the piece and doing front loading that, but you can't actually apply for the production of the work if that's going to happen after March. So I would just highlight commissioning as something to look at, and you might want to come through to us with questions on that. And what defines a small arts organisation? Anybody want to come in?
Well, I mean, if I can come in here, these last two questions there from the John Hewitt Society. This is Damien. The question of fees goes back, as has been said, to the time frame within which any money that's awarded needs to be spent. I think the artist's fees, if you look at it in a particular way, implies a certain type of transaction. There are other kinds of activity that can be applied for, which could relate to types of could be considered as commissions over the period of the 2 months or 3 months. And I think that a bit of thinking around that would be useful. You could think also about marketing. You could think about materials that can boost the capacity of the visibility of any organisation or any practice that's ongoing. These are all just ways of thinking around the question of what you would usually think about, which may be related specifically and exclusively to programming. Small organisations are, it's all relative. I mean, this is, within Northern Ireland, any organisation, I think, that's in receipt of Arts Council funding certainly would be considered to be significant and something that we would want to regard as important.
Thank you, Damien. We have a good question here about attaching additional documents that can be referenced in the application or illustrate more information. I'll hand over to any colleague there to talk about the the burden of too much additional attachments.
Yeah, this is Gilly speaking. In relation to providing extra information that we have haven't asked for, I think if we haven't asked for it, my advice would be don't send it in. We're not sure how many applications we're going to receive, but we know it's going to be a pretty busy round, and we may not have time to look through other pieces of information. And remember, essentially, we're asking for information that helps inform your answers to the criteria. So I would just be careful about how much information you do provide. As I said, our assessment will be done according to the criteria. You know, obviously, if there is something that you think is imperative that comes along with your application, you could perhaps upload it. But again, I don't know if
so the sort of answer to that, Gilly, is you're quite right, but no, I mean, we don't have that facility to upload additional information. Please just, if you would just follow what you're asked to supply on the online route and the mandatory enclosures. We don't have either capacity or the facility to have extra documentation.
Thank you. Here's an interesting one. What if our constitution is out of date but currently under review with an external consultant process?
Fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd say put it in as the existing constitution.
Yeah.
But Paul might want to comment, but I'd say it's your existing one and it's under review. That's fine. You can tell us that too. But
yeah, obviously you can only apply as to what you are at the moment, but we'd need to see what your constitution is at the point of application. So I don't really know whether I'm taking the same as what Suzanne's just said, out of date there. I'm not quite sure either you're constituted or not, but you know, you just tell us what you are.
Yeah, you might want to come through to us on that one just to talk about it in a bit more detail, because you know, we'd hate you to go through the whole application process and then maybe be ineligible. So is our arts officer the point of contact for assisting in writing the renewal plans? That's Paul Mason. And if you mean within our organisation, Paul, if I'm picking up your question correctly, I don't think we can provide you with assistance in writing your renewal plan. You know, because we then have to assess your application. So we prefer to keep those completely separate. But certainly you could come through for a bit more of a discussion around what a renewal plan might look like. I'm just trying to remember what we have in the frequently asked questions, but again, you know, we'll certainly try to give some advice, but we can't help you to write it unless anyone demurs there.
I agree with that.
Yep.
Thank you. Let's see, what do we do if 1920 accounts are with the accountants, but unlikely to have full accounts or draft ready in time for the application, at the mercy of accountants who are currently inundated with work and it's taking longer?
Okay, so we say this just in the guidance on when you get to take a closer look at the mandatory enclosures section of the guidance notes. We say that if you cannot provide your audited or certified accounts for 1920, you must provide with your most recent audit accounts and your latest draft accounts.
Perfect.
Does that help you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice and clear. Can you apply for multiple projects within the application?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we do say, as you know, you can only make one application, but you can apply for more than one project. So don't go mad, but okay, any more coming?
Well, look, I mean, that the suboptimal question there again, which just seems to have vanished from the screen. Well, there it is there. This is Paul Mason's query again, just returning to that point about a project that may be designed and then run at a loss, waiting for a decision the 29th of January and have the event before the 31st of March. Again, that's trying to describe a project that we don't know about yet, and you know, trying to come up with whether or not it would be viable. at this point. I think all we can do is, if there is, for instance, in an organisation, a projected deficit at year end that could be seen at this stage as being a deficit by 31st of March, that would be an eligible cost that would feature in an application that's being made at this stage. Activities, any activities that are planned over the period under discussion, those would be eligible as well, because they would all be feeding into the capacity and the viability of the organisation post COVID, if you like, and that would also have an impact on what would appear in the renewal plan. So I think these aren't about, oh, are we meant to come up with a project that runs for 2 months and then keep our fingers crossed that that the place is open and that they make some kind of income. It's not really that. It's about trying to imagine what a slightly longer term future might look like, what the immediate impacts, the negative impacts are likely to be from COVID by the time you get to the end of March. If that's a deficit, that's the kind of thing almost uniquely we'll be able to address through this funding scheme. And there could be other costs as well that you might imagine would be incurred over that period that we would regard as eligible too.
Thanks. Paul, would you take the next question on recent accounts? And I know just Margaret had said, like, we could run on 5 minutes, but I'm conscious we're coming up to the hour.
Yeah, just before Paul responds to management accounts, it's Margaret here again. I mean, you're right, there's still, you know, about 40 odd questions here that I see. And just so people know, we'll record all the questions. But 2 things that seem to be coming up in quite a few of the questions. One is AFP, people asking when it's going to open and how it fits with this. So that seems to be coming up, and other people are asking about maybe if you're waiting on a couple of decisions. I know, for example, I can speak for Thrive. We've a capital application in with yourselves for the start of December. So if you're waiting on that and you don't know if you've got it or not, but you might think of putting capital into the stability and renewal, how kind of does that work? So I wonder, maybe that might be 2 that might be useful to squeeze in.
Okay, Paul, would you take both of those if you can?
Okay, well, look, sorry, the capital one, I suppose what we would say there is, yeah, I mean, we obviously have to sequence things as best we can, but what we would do there, I mean, going back to what we'd said about capital requests, I mean, we say that you can apply for modest capital requests in this. So, you know, if you do that, and it is also something that is in the process at the moment, we will cross-refer back to see that, you know, there's that it's not something that would be funded again through this if you're successful through the capital program, which is in train at the moment. Does that answer that? The AFP, yes, I mean, we are, yeah, well, I suppose this is sort of subject to our board to some degree as well, but we would be anticipating that with the year that's in it, and with you know, just all the information and so on that's coming in from our annually funded clients, that would be that'll be happening into the new year. We don't have a firm date for when that's opening yet, but it obviously won't be immediate. It'll be on the far side of Christmas into the new year. But look, I can't really say much more on that unless you can, Noreen.
No, just to say one thing, the work that you put into your renewal plans, if you're an AFP client, will hold you in very good stead, because obviously that'll be forward looking, and that's, you know, what you'll be coming in for. So those will be key. We will be building those into what we would require from you under AFP. And so, as I say, you'll simply be resubmitting, because we were asking you for them under this programme to see what the future looks like. But actually those will be underpinning a lot of what you want to do then. I would have thought in your AFP applications. And as usual, if we have your material already on the government funders database, you know, it'll be minimal in terms of mandatory enclosures, and we'll be looking very closely, you know, at your financial requirements, your budgets and your programming for next year.
Yep. And also just to say that, you know, this scheme that we're talking about now is actually open to the whole a much wider footprint than annually funded clients. And I think it's worthwhile remembering that. AFP may also be open, but not obviously as we're not at that point yet. But I think the important thing is that whatever, as Noreen has just said, whatever the design of a renewal plan is and whatever information comes into us at this stage is obviously going to have a bearing on what any subsequent funding round that's opened.
Margaret, how do you want us to proceed?
Yeah, I mean, if people are happy, I mean, we're happy for you guys to continue on for another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll record all the questions, and obviously you guys can publish any answers that weren't able to be given. So are you okay to just do a few more questions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great.
On accounts then, Paul, please.
Is this the one that we have recent accounts, but our management accounts and bank statements are from a larger organisation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, just I suppose I'm going to have to just refer you back to what we ask for. This is, we do need to see this information. It is what's required of us, you know, in what we've co-designed with the department. And so if they're from a larger organisation, we need to see them, and we do need to see the bank statement as well.
Thank you. Can we scroll for more questions? Can you confirm, oh, sorry, but can you confirm if loss incurred before March 2020 is eligible? No.
No.
Not. It's only COVID related, so it's only from the 1st of April this year. Or, you know, you might have had a hit, you know, just as we were going into lockdown. So really since COVID-19.
I think we've maybe answered the management accounts one already. Obviously, yeah. Please provide us with what you feel is best there. You know, if you can get them, I would.
Yeah, there's Mick from Brassneck wanting to know, could we expand on the small company on the renewal plans, Damien?
Sorry, Noreen, I missed it.
Sorry, Mick from Brassneck, a small company, and could we expand on renewal plans? And he's got a particular focus, it would seem, on its capacity going forward to present digitally. So a bit more advice on renewal plans.
Well, I think the renewal plan is about trying to imagine the measures and steps that any company, under the pressure that everybody's currently under, would be able to take in order to strengthen over the next year, 18 months. I think we're looking for something that's around maybe a window of about 2 years. And I think that's important in order to capture plans for growth over that period, as well as, survivability and resilience over that period, but not, as I say, to omit the element of growth and development. So you're looking for the vision, you're looking for what is being brought to the arts society in general by the organisation, regardless of its size. And then you'd be looking at what other benefits it can bring to other aspects of the society that we're in. These are all about the wider impact and footprint of the arts. It's about, I think in one occasion there was talk about, it's about the change you make, not just in your own company, in your own organisation, but also in society, what you bring to society. And I think the whole temperament, obviously too, I think of DFC and the Minister, is about that this is a game-changing moment in the arts. And I think not just in terms of the impact and the damage that's been done, but also in terms of how we repair and what growth develops out of it, and how we adapt to the changes that are going to be needed. So I think from that point of view, we'd be looking at, as I said just a moment ago, or any organisation that is in the business of the arts and that has been around and about various art strategies over the last number of years. I think those organisations would be the ones that we're looking to see. What vision do you have for the next 18 months to 2 years? I think the renewal plan should begin to make sense, hopefully, of what where we'll be after COVID. And I think, you know, it'd be up to an organisation then to establish its, you know, how essential it is in that, you know, society and culture afterwards.
Thanks, Damien. There's a budget question, but maybe if we scroll on a wee bit just to get a feel for if there's maybe any broader ones that, you know, it's easy for us to pick up on the budget ones. And there's a bank statement one. So again,
bank statement is what we're looking for there.
Yeah, okay. Let's scroll on. We'll come back to the person. We'll answer the budget one. But I think we'll just scroll on a wee bit there, please, and see if there's any more of those broader questions. Let's see. Sean, I imagine there'll be possibly around 100 applications or more. This would give an average payout of 77,500. Will the number of applications dictate the payout? Can you scroll on? I can't see the end of the question. It's feasible. It is feasible you could receive, sorry, and I can't just read the rest.
It's asking if it's first come, first served until the money runs out, or does the amount to organisations diminish relative to the number of applications? And I would sort of suggest it's more towards the latter. I mean, it's not about first come, first served.
Yeah.
Okay.
The appeal process one, if you want me to just sort of say again, look, that's just dealt with in the guidance notes. We have a published complaints procedure. So if you feel that we haven't followed our processes or our processes have been deficient, then you can lodge a complaint. But that's the basis on which there would be a complaint.
Okay, thank you. Can we scroll on? I don't know if it's just my screen, but I'm stuck. So if somebody wants to take over reading out.
HP payments for goods purchased before the pandemic, I think no, those would be ineligible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's another question just picking up on the commissioning. The guidance notes and the facts state the commissions can be made before this date for work to be carried out later. Is there any further guidance around this? I think we would be saying, as per the guidance notes, yes, this is an opportunity to commission new work for future presentation, though how you would normally expect a commission to work doesn't necessarily apply, because for this programme we're accepting that the commission is complete when you tell us who has been commissioned, and therefore the contract is between you, the commissioner, you know, or you, the applicant, and the artist themselves. So it's a really fantastic opportunity to get some commissioning money out to artists, and I would encourage people to think about that.
Okay, keep going, guys. I can't see new questions, so.
Okay, there's one I'm going to read out. Noreen, Suzanne here. Anonymous attendee. I can get quite anxious about exactly what a question means and how to answer it. The use of modest in some parts of the application is going to give me panic attacks. I appreciate that it's a difficult question to answer, but can you give us any idea of what is really meant by modest? Obviously, it means don't go over the top, but this situation leaves little room for modesty amongst many in the sector. So, Noreen, it was just to get a sense of that, I suppose, in terms of modest.
I'm looking to see where we mention it. I'm sorry, but
yeah, you're okay.
We mention it under the capital, under the equipment. You know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If that's the only place, then I think we did answer that because we've got a capital program. So really, this is not primarily a capital program. Mm-hmm. So really just keep those costs modest, really, you know, but look, your deficit will be what your deficit is. You don't have to modify it down for us. That's an actual figure. So, I mean, the only place it applies then is capital. So please don't panic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, please keep any questions going because my screen seems.
It's Margaret here, and I imagine we probably have to wrap up. I've seen a few questions about eligible costs around things like digital presence, websites, that kind of thing. given that, you know, we're all trying to connect more with audiences online, would that be considered capital costs in terms of this fund, and could that be applied for?
I think those are eligible. The idea being that you would be looking to interpret those as part of delivery, and you'd be looking at also about capacity building and about building resilience and strengthening the visibility and access and outreach of the organisation in these, you know, in the particular climate we're in. So I would have thought that those would have come under that particular category.
I'm just going to pick up on Sarah's question about de minimis aid and state aid the same. Yes, in some of the rulings, Sarah, there is a de minimis level below which it wouldn't even apply. But even if it is more than that, I think it's 500,000 actually, it doesn't mean there's a cap on what you can apply for, because there are other mitigating rulings under the EU regulations that still allow you to make a larger award than that. So don't worry too much about it. In your renewal plan, can you request capital equipment? Well, you can certainly put it into your renewal plan, but we can't fund it this year if it's to benefit you for the next 3 years. And again, it would be beyond that modest request for capital under this programme. But certainly, you know, if capital is a big part of what you need going forward, let us know about it in your renewal plan.
But one there, Noreen, it might be worth saying, maybe just an open forum about maybe we've covered it already, but just in case not, there's a question from an anonymous attendee about employing a freelancer from February to June. No, that would be a case of, you know, just to go back to the point we've made about expenditure needs to take place before the 31st of March. So you can't set up something that would be a payment out beyond that.
Okay. Great. Well, look, thank you so much. I hope you find it helpful. I think we certainly did, hearing all of your questions and to see your thanks coming through there. So much appreciated.